Okay, so in this video I wanted to talk about dogma in nationalism and in ethnocentrism. Now, nationalism and ethnocentrism are so intertwined with each other that it's really hard to differentiate one from the other because they so often go hand in hand. That's why I chose to do them together. Now, as far as nationalism goes, being proud of where you're from really, in my opinion, doesn't make any sense, mostly because you had no choice in the matter. It seems as if you are automatically proud of wherever you're from. But isn't who you are and the values that you have more important to define who you are? Nationalism breeds complacency in the system that it's rooted in at its best. Now, for those who say, my country is the best, I would have to ask you, how do you define best? Now, nationalism is the assertion that one's country is better than another's, whereas ethnocentrism is saying that one's culture is better than another's. Because they're so entwined, as far as the atrocities go, the line between nationalism and ethnocentrism gets blurred here because they go hand in hand so often. Here are some examples. The Iran-Contra affair, which began as an effort to improve U.S.-Iranian relations, which kind of turned into an arms for hostages deal. The U.S. in Central America, and I'm referring mostly to the 80s, for instance, El Salvador. Tiananmen Square, which was a 1989 massacre in Beijing of student-led protesters. In Liberia, the warlord Charles Taylor, who took control of Liberia and presided over a state-sponsored campaign of rape and mutilation, torture, corruption, murder. And he also orchestrated mass murders and mutilations in Sierra Leone. Argentina's Dirty War, which was 6 years of repression and violence by their government, led by Jorge Videla, which I'm not really sure if I said his last name properly, and his successors, leading to the disappearance of about 30,000 people. Milosevic, nicknamed Butcher of the Balkans, he was responsible for war crimes in Kosovo and Croatia, and also genocide against Muslims in Bosnia. Hussein's attacks on Kurdish villages. Iraqi forces crushed the Kurds along the Iranian border, and they killed an estimated 100,000 people, most of them with nerve agents. The Spanish conquest of the New World wiped out an estimated 90% of the indigenous population, mostly with disease. Also, along with Catholic backing, they practiced things like bashing in children's heads right after they baptized them so that they would save their souls. The Congo genocide, which was during the administration of King Leopold II of Belgium, which forced labor and mass murder, torture, and the estimated number of victims is about 30 million in that one. The Holocaust, which was the extermination of approximately 6 million Jews by the Nazis, up to and during World War II. 2/3 of all European Jews lost their lives during the Holocaust. The Rwandan genocide, mass killings in Rwanda between two clans, the Hutus and the Tutsis, which was sparked by the assassination of the Hutu president, and about 75% of the Tutsis died, about 800,000 people. The Ukrainian famine, which estimated 2.6 to 10 million people dead due to the trade and economic policies of Stalin. The Bengal famine, where 3 million people died from starvation and malnutrition due to the British Army. They stored grains in anticipation of a Japanese invasion, and they exported that food to Allied forces while the local population starved. The Armenian genocide, which was basically a systematic extermination of the Armenian population right after World War I. They were forced to march hundreds of miles without food or water in the desert. About 1 to 1.5 million people died due to starvation, sickness, and disease. The Nanjing Massacre, which followed the Japanese capture of Nanjing, and thousands of civilians were murdered by Japanese soldiers. The killings in Manila in the Philippines, where 100,000 civilians were massacred by Japanese troops, due mostly to the fact of the frustration of the Japanese troops. And there's also one specific form of ethnocentrism that I wanted to cover, and that's racism. Racism promoted things like slavery and social Darwinism, eugenics, Also the disenfranchisement of rights, especially voting rights.